We have reached an agreement on the tax bill, and I think it puts us in a very good place to complete our work on time on a budget that resolves our deficit, which was our number one job, and makes the kind of historic investments in education and job creation and property tax relief that we've been talking about all session. As I said, the bill will balance the deficit and do what I just said. The biggest revenue raiser in the tax bill is a new fourth-tier income tax on the wealthiest Minnesotans, 2% on the top 2%. That is, the wealthiest 2% of Minnesotans will see a 2% increase in their income taxes this year. In addition, our plan closes corporate loopholes, as we've kind of bipartisanly agreed upon throughout the session, making our tax system fair and less cluttered. We're also increasing the cigarette tax to the rate proposed in the House bill. And we are removing the alcohol tax will no longer be part of the tax discussion. We have, as we worked on the details of the framework agreement, it did become clear that changes were needed in our overarching agreement to ultimately get to the compromise we need to get here today. And I think Minnesotans are very interested in politicians, their elected officials reaching compromise. So as we looked at the whole of the package, it became clear that some of the discomfort over the additional income tax needed for the surcharge to fully pay back our schools was growing, and so that will no longer be part of this tax proposal. Instead, we are going to continue to accelerate repayment of the school shift by allocating excess revenue from the current biennium to pay off that shift. That should get us close or probably beyond the 90-10 shift repayment, putting our schools on firmer financial footing than we've seen since the Great Recession, and hopefully getting them on track to be fully paid back this biennium. I think there is an agreement if by the time of the next February forecast that is not fully there, we'll continue to work on a solution to make sure that is completed next year. But more importantly than the details of the tax plan, I think it's important to focus again on what this is really all about. And that is making sure that we're making Minnesota a place where a strong middle class can grow and can thrive. And that's about these historic investments in education, all-day kindergarten, of significant investment in early childhood education that we haven't been able to make, we've been talking about for a decade, haven't been able to make. We're doing that this year. Freezing tuition at our higher education institutions and making the first new investment in higher education institutions in a decade, and providing our K-12 schools with the additional funds that they're going to need to make the kind of to create the world's best workforce, to make sure that we're on track to making Minnesota a place where our people are the best educated in the entire world. And I think that this plan that we're talking about today gets us there. It also makes significant investments in property tax reduction, something we also talked about a lot, $400 million in property tax reductions, and invests also, and finally, and as importantly, in job creation initiatives in a significant way that are going to get people back to work and also create the kind of economic platform in partnership with the private sector that we need to continue the economic growth we've already been seeing in the state of Minnesota. This is a great budget for middle-class Minnesotans. It's a great budget for our children. It's a great budget for people that need a job and are in a job and need to do more in their job. It's a great budget for homeowners all across the state who will see property tax relief. That's what this is all about. As I said on Sunday, I think we are on the cusp of an important correction, a course correction in our state's history, and I think this budget that we're talking about today, that we're going to be able to pass in the next several days, is a clear indication that that's the case. This tax bill allows us to reverse that course and really set the stage for a prosperous Minnesota and a growing middle class.
Well, this is the linchpin of the session. Now everything will fall in under the tax bill. So we are well on our way, and I would argue ahead of schedule, to have accomplished a completion on the negotiations on the tax bill on Thursday before the end of session. So an important component in there that the Speaker didn't mention is something the Senate brought to the conference committee. There is a sales tax article that expands the sales tax to some non-consumer items. And with that expansion, we are going to eliminate the sales tax on cities and counties. We've often wondered why, and it was done back in 1981, that the state imposes a sales tax on cities and counties of $100 million a year, and they have to turn around and levy property taxes in order to pay the sales tax to the state. So finally, that is going to go away. The other thing we're going to do that is a very significant tax reduction for the business community is we are finally, after all these years, going to do the upfront exemption on capital equipment purchases. So the Senate is very, very pleased that the Governor and the Speaker were willing to consider our sales tax provisions. We think it positions Minnesota well to hold down, and we're hoping to actually freeze property taxes. We're still talking to the cities about that. And provide a significant stimulus to our business community. They now will not have to go out and borrow the money to invest in the equipment, only to have to later apply for a refund. So this should make financing economic development projects easier by providing the upfront exemption. And I want to thank the Governor and the Speaker for considering that.
I'm not going to repeat what has just been said very well, but I do want to thank Speaker Thiessen and Majority Leader Bach and Majority Leader Murphy and Assistant Leader Sieben and all their leadership. This has been a really constructive process. You know, we've had enormous amounts of details to work through, and we've done that in a spirited way, in a cooperative way, in a disciplined, dedicated way. And I think, as has been said, you know, we completed what we were going to complete on time, what we promised the people of Minnesota we do. We're going to raise revenues progressively, and the fourth tier is a key part of that. The additional $2 billion is raised. 36% of that is going to education. 31% of it is going to alleviate the deficit. 20% of that's going to property tax relief. 5% of that's going to jobs, economic development, and housing. That's 92% of the $2 billion. So it's not just a number, you know, a significant number, $2 billion of tax revenues raised progressively. It's what it's going for, and my predecessors have said that well. You know, investments in education. We promised that, we're delivering. Property tax relief. We promised that, we're delivering. Jobs and economic development. Promised that, we're delivering. We have to take care of the deficit. We've done so straightforward, no gimmicks, no games. Honest accounting for now, for the future, and you know, I'm just very, very proud of the House and Senate for the way they've come together and worked together, and now we'll get it done. Questions?
Is Mayo Clinic's Destination Medical Center in here?
It's not part of the tax package, but it's part of. Well, is it part of?
It's a tax bill, but
okay,
it is.
But it is. Yeah, they're working out the final 2% right now. But the wrinkles.
What will the bottom line sales tax rate be? Is your plan change the overall rate at all? No.
But again, I emphasize no sales tax on clothing or consumer goods or services.
Did you take the Senate position on which business-to-business services you would be taxing? I mean, is it warehousing, equipment repair, and telecom?
There are 3 non-consumer sales tax expansions that will be included in the bill.
Second.
Right here. Warehousing and storage, electronic and commercial equipment repair and maintenance, and telecommunications equipment.
Only for business.
Only commercial, non-consumer, and that money will be used to eliminate the sales tax on cities and counties and to provide money to pay for the upfront exemption on capital equipment.
Top rate be? The fourth year is at the 9.85 that you proposed.
Speaker Thiessen, how do you walk away from what was your priority issue for the session?
Well, I mean, our priority issue from the session has been making sure that we get a budget that works for Minnesotans, and we're making historic investments in education. You know, at the end of the day, Minnesotans want us to compromise, to figure out a way to put a deal together, and you know, I think that's what we're delivering on right now.
You know, I think we're being fiscally conservative while still keeping the House's pledge to pay back the school shift in its entirety by the end of the next biennium. And we're going to do that. We're accelerating the first payment based on the end of this fiscal year's surplus. It's now $300 million. hopefully go up higher than that. We're going to put that in right away to the schools, and then we got November forecast, a February forecast. If the economy continues to improve, I expect we'll be able to pay back most, if not all of it, by then. And if for some reason we have an economic downturn, we have to deal with it, we'll deal with it next session. But we're going to absolutely make good on that promise that has been made to the people of Minnesota.
So is the bottom line on taxes $2 billion?
It's the same number we announced on Sunday. So it's $2 billion less, the $400 million in property tax relief.
And what's the top rate?
9.85%. And you can blame that on me.
Yeah, and explain how the cigarette tax that you're talking about now fits in with the stadium.
I think you got that story earlier today in the Conference Committee. I mean, it is what it is. It's part of the whole package.
It will be as it was announced today.
Well, as various people have interpreted Commissioner Franz's explanation of it, yeah, it'll fall within that ballpark.
And it'll go into.
Hear it again. Is he here? Is he still here?
And it'll go into the.
It is what he said it was.
But it'll go into the general fund.
Well, technically, anything we have, including the pull tabs money, goes into the general fund. That's just the route it takes.
Republicans say means that you're taking money out of the general fund to pay for the stadium, which they said you'd never do.
Well, I said the pull tab money that they signed off on last year, in fact, that Speaker Zeller suggested and insisted upon, that money goes into the general fund and then gets routed, designated for that project. So this is no different from that. It's a new source of revenue. It's closing corporate loopholes. There is no additional tax on any citizen of Minnesota. And so it meets all the parameters that we agreed upon last year. And, I expect that, Republicans are going to, they don't want to screw up the project. We saw it unveiling 2 days ago, and 7,000 people go to work because of that. And the next day, Ryan Construction announces a project that would add another 5,000 jobs that would otherwise be going to Des Moines, Iowa, I'm told. And you look at the transformation of that area of Minneapolis based on the drawings, and they want to just throw all that out the window so they can make a political grandstand out of it. I think that's shameful. We're putting people to work. We're not playing political games. We're putting people to work in Minnesota.
Mr. Speaker, what corporate loopholes are you closing, and how much revenue do you expect to raise?
I think it's better for you. The tax committee will walk through the spreadsheet. I don't know the exact answer on that. I'm sorry.
Do you have a list of how much money is coming from each of these tax proposals you're talking about that you can get to us on tonight's deadline?
What? Yeah, the tax conference committee is going to be meeting tonight, and this will be. You think you'll see that tonight?
What's the final cigarette tax increase?
It's the House's number. So what is that? $1.60?
160 additional.
And what about some of these side issues, lawmaker pay, minimum wage? Have those been decided, or are those still to be determined in the days to come?
Our discussions have been all about getting the tax bill done because we want to get the budget done.
So the budget deal is not entirely closed up? I mean, that the lawmaker pay thing is part of a Senate budget bill.
Oh, the conference committees are working on stuff like that. But this is what allows us to get to the deal.
Where are you at on that? Have you promised to vote?
On what?
On the lawmaker pay.
We have a constitutional amendment up tomorrow on the calendar.
We have time for one more question on the tax bill. Have you expected the tax conference committee to work out these details? Isn't this the fact that you all had to step in kind of a breakdown in the system?
Not at all. This is fairly usual in the process, and there's lots of details for the tax conference committee to work out, and certainly we had input from our tax chairs.
Do you address what happened with alcohol? It's no longer in the tax plan.
This is exactly, again, the way we said we were going to do it, that the three of us, leadership, and include actually five with Senator Stephen and Representative Murphy, we're going to set the broad parameters, and then the tax committee, and like the other committees, are going to work out the details. I mean, they've had major responsibility, and Representative Lanchewski and Senator Skoyce and the rest have done a superb job of wading through a lot of the details, some of which you're asking questions about. So, I mean, again, nothing broke down. This has worked exactly the way we said it would from the outset.
What's the status of the bonding proposal? It's getting late, and you'll need to get Republican votes in both chambers. Where is that at, and how does that fit into this?
It's on the floor tomorrow, the bonding proposal.
Thank you all very much.